why? What makes this conflict more than just a fight between two nations? Why is it shaking global markets, fueling political chaos and threatening the world order? Today, we break down the war that's got the entire planet holding its breath. From its hidden origins, to the economic fallout, to how it might change your daily life forever. We're going to delve into the nitty-gritty, the stuff that usually gets glossed over in those blink and you'll miss it news headlines. We're not just talking about troop movements and diplomatic statements that sound like they were written by a confused thesaurus. We're talking about the real-world consequences, the ripple effects that travel thousands of miles to land squarely in your lap, often in the form of a shockingly high electricity bill or the sudden unavailability of your favorite brand of imported biscuits. This is the big one, folks, the main event, the conflict that's managed to make everything else feel like the undercard at a particularly depressing wrestling match. Let's get into it. Right, let's talk origins. To understand this mess, we need to go back. Not just a few years, but decades. This is a slow cooker recipe for disaster. Lines on maps drawn by outsiders are a big part of the problem. Ancient grievances, colonial blunders, Cold War power plays, and religion. Mix spiritual beliefs with territorial claims, and you get an explosive cocktail. And let's not forget resources: oil, gas, minerals, and strategic ports. Generations have grown up in the shadow of past conflicts, and foreign interventions have only added fuel to the fire. Despite peace deals and ceasefire agreements, here we are. So the conflict erupts, as conflicts in powder keg regions tend to do. And what started as a localized, albeit horrific situation didn't stay local for long. The world, it turns out, cannot resist a good, old-fashioned international crisis to get involved in. Often, it was about strategic interests, old alliances, or simply not wanting the other superpower to gain an advantage. Then came the sanctions, the weapon of choice for countries that want to inflict economic pain without firing missiles. The impact of these sanctions can be just as devastating for ordinary people as any conventional weapon. Let's look at the countries supporting each side. It's a complex web, not always a clear good guys versus bad guys scenario. Nations providing military aid, intelligence, and economic support, sometimes openly, sometimes through clandestine channels. And what about the international bodies? The United Nations, bless its well-intentioned heart, found itself in its usual position, issuing strongly worded condemnations and trying to broker peace talks while being largely hamstrung by the veto powers of its most powerful members. NATO, on the other hand, found itself reinvigorated, or perhaps re-terrified, depending on your perspective. An organization that some had dismissed as a relic of the Cold War suddenly had a very clear and present danger to focus on. But the response wasn't just governmental. Around the world, ordinary citizens took to the streets. We saw massive protests, some in support of one side, some in support of the other, and many simply calling for peace and an end to the bloodshed. This civilian backlash also manifested in boycotts, in cultural institutions taking stances, and in a widespread debate about responsibility and complicity. So, the world found itself on the brink of something far bigger. Alright, let's talk about something near and dear to all our hearts, or at least near and dear to the companies that send us increasingly alarming bills money. You may not live anywhere near the actual fighting, you might not even be able to find the war zone on a map without Google's help. No judgment, geography is hard. But I guarantee you, you're feeling this war in your wallet, in your budget, in that little anxiety pit in your stomach when you look at your bank balance. First up, the painfully obvious rising energy prices. It turns out that when major energy-producing or transit regions go up in flames, metaphorically or literally, the global supply chain gets a bit jittery. And by jittery, I mean it often seizes up like an old engine and the price of oil and gas skyrockets. This isn't just about your personal discomfort, though that's certainly valid. These energy price hikes have a cascading effect throughout the entire economy. Transportation costs go up, so the price of everything that needs to be transported goes up, which, newsflash, is pretty much everything. Then there's food insecurity. This war has disrupted agricultural production in key breadbasket regions and blocked vital export routes for grain, fertilizers, and other essential agricultural products. Countries that rely on these imports, particularly in the developing world, are facing catastrophic shortages and soaring food prices. The knock-on effect of all this is, you guessed it, global inflation. Central banks, which had been trying to gently coax economies back to health after previous shocks, suddenly found themselves wrestling with inflation rates not seen in decades. Businesses become hesitant to invest, consumers cut back on spending, and economic growth stalls or even reverses. But hey, it's not all bad news for everyone, right? Because in every crisis there are always a few winners. Defense stocks, for instance, have been doing rather well. Now let's shift gears and talk about how this war is being fought, and perhaps more importantly, how it's being seen. Because this isn't your grandfather's war, meticulously reported by correspondents in trench coats, with film footage that took weeks to develop and dispatch. This is warfare in the digital age, a conflict playing out in real time on your smartphone screen, often sandwiched between a cat video and an ad for a product you definitely don't need. The battlefield itself has been transformed by technology. We're talking about the widespread use of drones, from sophisticated military-grade unmanned aerial vehicles conducting surveillance and strikes, to off-the-shelf consumer drones retrofitted to drop grenades. Satellites play an unprecedented role, providing intelligence, tracking troop movements, and even verifying claims of damage or atrocities. Commercial satellite imagery, once the exclusive domain of spy agencies, is now readily available, offering a god's-eye view of the conflict to anyone with an internet connection. And then there's cyber warfare, the invisible front line. Attacks on critical infrastructure, government websites, financial institutions, all designed to disrupt, disable, and demoralize. Disinformation campaigns launched with surgical precision, aiming to sow confusion and undermine trust. But the biggest game changer is arguably social media. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, Telegram, and Facebook have become central to how this war is experienced globally. We see raw, unfiltered footage from the front lines, often posted by soldiers themselves or by civilians caught in the crossfire. However, and this is a colossal however, social media is also a cesspool of propaganda, misinformation, and outright lies. Doctored images, old footage presented as new, AI-generated fakes. It's an information battlefield where truth is the first casualty and often the most frequently wounded. Amidst all the talk of geopolitics, economic shockwaves, and digital battlegrounds, it's crucial, absolutely bloody crucial, that we don't lose sight of the most important aspect of any war, the human cost. Because while governments strategize and talking heads pontificate, it is ordinary people like you and me, only with far worse luck, who suffer the unimaginable consequences. Their lives are not abstract concepts, they are flesh and blood, hopes and dreams now shattered. We've seen refugee crises unfold on a scale that strains resources and compassion across borders, millions forced to flee their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs and whatever they could carry, families torn apart, children traumatized, the elderly and vulnerable left in dire straits. Cities, once vibrant centers of culture and life, have been reduced to rubble. Homes, schools, hospitals, places that should be sanctuaries have become targets. The physical destruction is immense, erasing not just buildings but history, community, and the very fabric of daily existence. And the future's stolen? Think of the children who will grow up without parents, without education, without a sense of normalcy. Think of the young people whose ambitions and dreams have been replaced by the grim reality of survival. Beyond the immediate physical injuries, the long-term mental and physical tolls are staggering. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, these are the invisible wounds of war, carried by survivors long after the fighting stops. We see international aid efforts mobilizing, a testament to human solidarity. NGOs, charities, and individual volunteers stepping up to provide food, shelter, medical care, and comfort. So, after all that cheery discussion of devastation, economic collapse, and digital deception, the billion-dollar question is, what happens next? Is this the overture to World War III, a terrifying prospect that makes my palms sweat just saying it? Will peace, that elusive, almost mythical creature, ever return to this shattered land? Or are we witnessing the grim blueprint for future global conflicts in an increasingly unstable world? Let's explore some potential scenarios, ranging from the vaguely optimistic to the build-a-bunker and hoard, canned goods terrifying. This war is more than borders and bullets, it's a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears and our highest hopes. Whether you're in New York, Delhi, Lagos, or Tokyo, this war touches your life. It's a stark, brutal reminder that in our interconnected world, the suffering of others is never truly distant, and the quest for peace is a responsibility that falls on all of us, not just the people in fancy suits signing treaties that may or may not hold. The complexities are immense, the solutions elusive, and the human cost, as we've seen, is devastatingly high. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel powerless in the face of such monumental challenges. But understanding is the first step. Understanding the origins, the global repercussions, the human element, it's what allows us to move beyond simplistic narratives and engage with the world as it truly is, not just as we wish it were. And hopefully, to demand better from those in power. If you found this breakdown insightful, and frankly if you didn't, I'm not sure what more I can do. I've poured my heart and a considerable amount of research into this. Then please do the things that YouTube creators always ask you to do, like share and subscribe for more deep dives into the events shaping our world. And drop a comment. How do you think this war will end? Or perhaps more importantly, how do you think we can start building a world where such conflicts become a relic of a barbaric past? Stay informed, stay engaged, and try, just try, to stay sane out there.